How did the universe come about, or how did Sophia come about?
Well, those are two questions.
Maybe Sophia might
So
be
I'll give
more
you, can I
our
give you two
heroine.
answers? I'll give you
Sure,
two
sure.
answers. I was talking to Sean Stone day before yesterday, and I was sort of playing with him a little, not too much. Playing with me is sort of like playing with a black mamba. Uh, you have to be, up until now, it's been nice guy. I'm getting to the end of my nice guy act, but I was nice guy. And I said to him, because he brought up the question of cosmology, and I said, do you want to ask me about the origin of the universe? And he said, sure. And I said, it doesn't have an origin, and neither does your mind, which just heard my words.
Love it.
However, getting to the really rich and beautiful answer to your question, I must emphasize, and I can't emphasize this too much, that the Sophianic myth of the mysteries and of the Gnostics, the birthright of humanity, the story to guide our species, is not about the universe. The universe is everything. There's only one universe. There cannot be parallel universes, because if there were multiple universes, they would still be in the one frame. It's not a story about the origin of the universe. It's a story about something that happened in this galaxy. It's local to our galaxy. So in this galaxy, which is a material reality, material environment in the great cosmos, there is the galactic hub, the core, and the galactic arms. And in the third galactic arm, some people would say fourth, the solar system is now presently sailing along. And it's a story about that. It's a story about how the solar system arose and what happened in this galaxy of a very special and particular event. Now, this event can be described now according to the paradigm of EU cosmology, electric universe, and plasma cosmology. Occasionally, from the core of a galaxy, not from the universe as a whole, but from the actual core of a galaxy, there will be a plasmic eruption. And when that happens, a massive plume of plasma from the galactic core erupts into intergalactic space. So this is something that's known in physics. You've probably heard about it. Do you follow the EU Thunderbolts people at all, by the way?
No, I don't. Do you, Vance?
No, it's the first I've heard of it.
Well, they're a renegade astrophysicist.
Oh.
And they have Thunderbolts Project on YouTube. And they've had a lot of things. So they're against all of the bullshit and mathematical quackademery of quantum physics and relativity theory and everything. They're, in their own way, they're really, really grounded. And they talk a lot about this, plasma eruptions in galaxies, but not just them. So anyway, to cut to the chase, what happened, according to the Gnostic cosmology, is that there was a plasmic plume, a massive plume of plasmic current that erupted from our galaxy. But this is a key point. It did not erupt vertically. There are many illustrations, of course, they're only artistic illustrations because no one can photograph it, of plasma plumes erupting vertically off the horizontal plane of the galaxy. But the Gnostics said that no, this plume erupted laterally across the galactic arms. Can you picture that?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Yeah.
And so doing so, it literally tore through those regions which are heavily loaded with stars and planets. There are no stars and planets in the core. And so it was a super, super powerful discharge of a plasmic plume. That is, astronomically defined, the fall of the Aeon Sophia. That was her. It was her living torrent of power that erupted, and it terminated, the plume terminated in the third arm of the galaxy. That's where she ended up. The story describes everything that she faced there, the strange conditions that she faced, because she was a star goddess from the galactic core, and she had never been outside before, outside in the environment of the galactic limbs. And as a result of many strange experiences that she had, she eventually herself turned into the planet Earth. But at the same time, the planet Earth became captured in the Archontic planetary system. So the other planets of the solar system are Archontic, they are inorganic. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. And those planets form, of course, the solar system as a whole, and then the Earth is completely different from those other planets because it is formed by the transformation of that plasmic eruption. This is Gnostic cosmology.
Yes, it's and again, your writings is beautiful. There's so much more, and so you would say for the audience to know what is the anthropos and why is this concept so important in your cosmology and overall work?
It is so important, and it is something, one of the many things that Gnostic scholars such as Elaine Pagels, whom I met, and I presented a seminar with her, they've completely lost the plot. They have completely failed to interpret this material.
Right.
What you read, if you read any of the Gnostic scholars, is they talk about something called the Anthropos doctrine. Anthropos doctrine, what's that? Oh, well, the Gnostics had some concept of something, and they called it the Anthropos doctrine, you know. They are completely clueless. They do not realize that the Anthropos is a name for the human genome. We are the anthropine species, and every member of all the different races is evolved from this primary genomic template. That is the Anthropos. So the story says that at the core of the galaxy, two aeons, who must not be pictured in anthropomorphic form, picture them as great serpents, great torrents of light. But it's light that is alive and conscious. They designed the human genome. So the origin of humanity in the human genome is in the galactic core. That is the Anthropos. You know that already, don't you? Because you read the book.
Of course, of course.
And this is a beautiful story of human origins.
It is.
And as far as I'm concerned, it's the best one. Coherent, comprehensive, makes sense, can be tested, can be verified. And so the fact is that humanity as it lives on the earth today was created, designed as a genomic plasm. This genomic plasm was encoded with 7 particular talents. That's called the calibration of the Anthropos. There are 7 talents encoded in human DNA, 7 specific talents, and I can describe them all at length and explain how they work. And so if you picture a DNA molecule that has been engineered by these divine forces, our divine parents, and then they encapsulated it it's formed in nucleic acid. So the substance of it is nucleic acid. And then they encapsulated it in what is called exclusion zone water, easy water, which is sort of like a gel. So you know how you would take a vitamin and it's a gel, right? It's in a pill, right? Imagine that the gel inside the vitamin is the DNA of the human species in nucleic acid. And then that the coating of the gel, which dissolves when you swallow the pill, is the preservation of it. And so it becomes a seed or propagule. That's the term from Lynn Margulis, mother of Gaia theory, whom I also met and also have spoken with her in a seminar. So then what they do, and this is what they do all the time, this is the play of the aeons. They project that seed outward into the limbs of the galaxy, and it just floats. Imagine little seeds of an oak tree that fall upon a river or stream, and then they float along that stream. So these seeds of the anthropos float out into the galaxy until they find a habitable environment, until they come upon a planetary laboratory, I call it, and they drop into the planet and they seed on the planet, and the human species emerges in that way.
Again, you put it in a very, like I said, scientific way, which makes
it is
sense.
A mythopoetic masterpiece. The human imagination has never produced anything comparable to the Sophianic myth. And at the same time, it is a scientific description of the evolution, of the origin of our species and how it evolves on the galactic level. We're talking about our galaxy now. Let's say if we can figure out the things that are happening in our galaxy, then you want to go on from there to something else. Go right ahead. But if you can't figure out what's happening in our galaxy and in our planetary system, then you have no business speculating about anything else.
How about the other species on the planet? How do they fit?
Brilliant question. This is such a story. It is so awesome. It is so rich. It goes basically to the concept of emergence and what is called aporia in Greek. There are various Sanskrit words for it. Emergence is the key concept in complexity theory today, which is the present iteration of chaos theory, which came out in the 70s. So basically, the Gnostic Cosmology explains that life on Earth arose in two ways. One way was by the seeding of the human genome into the atmosphere. So the fact is that life does come from outer space. Human life on Earth does come from outer space. And the verification of that, by the way, is in the theory of panspermia, which was presented by a Swedish physicist way back in 1905 or something. So I'm not talking sci-fi or make-believe here. However, the Gnostic cosmology distinguishes between the presence of the human species in different races, maybe we'll get to that subject, and all the other animal species. How did all the other animal species on the earth arise? Well, they arose through the dreaming power of the Aeonic Mother herself. You see, divine imagination is different from human imagination. Human imagination requires a delay between conceiving or imagining something and creating it. Think of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. What a magnificent and beautiful construction. But in order for the Golden Gate Bridge to be there, to have been materially constructed, it first had to be imagined. Then a long process of planning and engineering resulted in the materiality of the Golden Gate Bridge. Divine imagination doesn't work that way. In divine imagination of the aeons, they can instantly materialize what they imagine. And that's the best analogy for that is like dreaming. Sophia dreams, and what she dreams materializes. So that's the way that all of the other species on the planet were produced, by the spontaneous dreaming of the Aeonic Mother. And she dreams today, and she dreams still as I speak.
And in both in your book, and of course, this is supported by Gnostic story, Sophia, as she falls, her grief, confusion transform into the physical elements of Earth and the biosphere. I'm quoting directly from your book, but scientifically, how did our mutual villain, our favorite villain, Yaldabaoth, Samael, and Saklas, and his gang of Archon thugs, how did they come about?
They came about through an accident. Accidents happen.
The Gospel of Philip.
Yeah, the Gospel of Philip. The world as you know it came about through an accident, through an unattended consequence. So, due to the fact that Sophia left the galactic core, she was so compelled about the development of her designer species, the unique singularity that is you and I, that she was pulled by her passion, enthemesis they call it, out of the galactic core. And when that plume, that massive plume, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of light years in extent, this massive plume of core galactic plasma erupted across the galaxy. It terminated in the third arm, and when it impacted the material part of that arm, which doesn't exist in the galactic core, it smashed, and the smash effect produced the Archons. This is one of the most bizarre scenarios you will ever hear, and you will only find it in the Gnostic cosmology. So the Aeon Sophia herself is responsible for the presence of the Archons in the solar system. That's a fact.
Yeah, and do you think Sophia loves her stranded children, the Archons, and Yaldabaoth, or
no? She doesn't love the Archons.
She does. She's done with them. That's a question that often comes up. I mean, the Valentinians thought the Demiurge could be redeemed, maybe.
Yeah, well, I've talked a lot about the Valentinians, and I've made a big issue over the years. In fact, may I go back to the revision of my book for a moment?
Yeah, please do.
One of the main thing that I changed in this book, so readers beware, was that previously, when I wrote Not in His Image, I had been sort of looking out of the corner of my eye at the Valentinian cosmology. Now, there is a Valentinian cosmology, a version, like it's a version of a movie, but there's another version of that movie, which is the Sethian cosmology that I follow, right? Mm-hmm. You know that distinction.
Same here, yeah, same here.
Yeah. So, originally, and I've talked a lot about this, I accepted the Valentinian version, and I accepted that the Aeon Christos, who is not in any way to be identified with Jesus Christ or the Jewish Christian Savior, completely different entity. But I had followed the Valentinians in the role of the Aeon Christos. Now I've changed that in this book, in the chapter about the intercession, about the coming of the Valentinians say that at a certain point, when she turned into the earth, Sophia was overwhelmed by the multitude of all of the species that were spontaneously erupting out of her body, and that she needed an aeonic backup to come in and help her manage these affairs. Now, the Valentinians say that that was Christos, but I have changed that in this version, and I have found another Aeon who fits that profile, in my opinion, more accurately. So she has been assisted by the other Aeons in managing her situation here on Earth, but she most certainly does not have any mercy at all for the Archons. And as I said before, she defied the Lord Archon, the Drakon, and she said, when you finally get down to your end game with my designer species, the Anthropos, that luminous child that I designed will wipe you out, and it will be as if you had never been. Imagine living in a world not too far away when none of this bullshit, this staged deceit exists, and it will be as if it had never been. Imagine that.
That would be beautiful. Yes, Sophia as Achamoth, as the queen of Hades in the Gospel of the Egyptians. She's a warlike being. She can be. She's out to win, and she has a plan for this universe. I'm sure you agree, John. And but I wanted to bring you, Vance. I've read the book many times. Do you have any questions, or does this cosmology make sense? I mean, I know you work with the stars.
Yeah, well, it's making a lot of sense, but some things occurring to me from listening to you, John, that haven't before. It sounds to me like throughout humanity's history that, you know, the gods and planets influence, if the other planets are the archons and the rulers, like they say in astrology, you know, Saturn rules this and Jupiter rules that. That means the planets are equivalent to the archons, except for the Earth. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And the sun is not an
Well, the sun is not. The sun and moon are exceptions. In fact, the total Gaian ecosystem is not merely the Earth. It's a three-body system, which is the sun, the Earth, and the moon. That is the total body of the Aeon Sophia. So, yes, the sun, the Earth, and the moon are organic. They are inherent to organic life, and they are different from the inorganic planetary system of Saturn, Mars, Mercury, and so forth. Might I ask you, Vance, what work with the stars do you pursue?
Well, I used to do astrological charts in former times.
What system did you use?
Don't really know what system it was. Basically, the mundane system that everyone else uses.
You cast charts.
Yeah.
Tropical astrology.
Yeah.
Well, I was an astrological consultant for 35 years myself. So we've got something in common there, bro.
Wow. That's great. And yeah, and we should mention the sun.
That's way beyond what I did.
In the Gnostic mythology is Sabaoth, the redeemed archon, according to the Gnostic text.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So this is a beautiful cosmology, and I have to warn people who are listening, if you're interested in this, your interest better be serious, and it better be deep. You know, if I'm a marine biologist, or let's say I'm a rock climber, let's say I'm a mountaineer and I've climbed Everest, whatever, you come to me and you say you want to learn, you better be serious. You better be willing to put a commitment into this, because it is a deep and complex mythology. Now, this question with a discipline, this question about the planets, you know, what are they, the archons? Well, the planets are archontic bodies. They are inorganic. And also, for instance, they can be represented, they can be regarded as, in a way, the habitat or domain of the archons. Okay? So, but you have to then go to the narrative, the sacred narrative, which tells you more about that and goes into great specific detail about what that means, probably beyond the scope of this conversation.
So needless to say, Elon Musk wanting to send us to Mars plays right into the hands of the demiurge.
Yeah, well, let him go first.
Yeah, and stay there for a while, and then come.
Let him get the implant. You know, these people, these transhumanists are the primary proxies, among others, of the archons in this world, and everything they say is a lie. And the way they talk about it really pisses me off. I would, you know, we were sitting at a bar together and some other people came over and started to talk with us, you can imagine a scenario where it would evolve into a bar fight.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned, Elon Musk, I'm ready for the bar fight. I'm ready for the bar fight because I've had enough of your bullshit and your hype. And you're telling people, you know, you're such a liar. They're all liars. Why don't they just say, I would like to see the human being interfaced with cybernetic devices, instead of saying, this is going to happen, we're doing this, we're going to make this happen, and you're going to accept it. They never talk that way. They always talk about it like it's inevitable, the technology is going there. No, it isn't. The technology is going fucking nowhere.
Agreed.
It's so against human nature. It's so against common sense to be addicted to these devices. You know, we're using this device right now. And I'll tell you, as far as I'm concerned, it's no different than a phone call I made to a girlfriend back in the 70s.
Agreed.
All this hype of IT and artificial intelligence, which I just said, is a con, is going down. It's going down. And what's coming next, I call the beauty to come. I don't believe that it's necessary for the archontic IT technology, computers and everything to be entirely eliminated. Not at all. But it can be used within sane limits. But it cannot be used to run society and run the behavior and psyches of individuals as it does now. It cannot be used that way. It won't work. It will crap out because of its own unsustainable properties.